I do want to offer a trigger warning on today's video. We're dealing with torture and abuse of an underage person. The person in question today is Timothy Ferguson, who was a homeschooled 15-year-old boy who was murdered at the hands of his mother and brother.
Horrific accusation of child abuse out of Muskegon County.
He's been wearing really loose clothes the last couple of weeks.
He's really skinny.
He's really skinny, and I didn't notice till this morning because he wouldn't, I asked him if he's okay, and he would not answer me,
I want the woman who killed my little brother to face the highest punishment possible. I want her detained for the rest of her life so she can't hurt anyone else.
I don't know. I don't know what I was thinking.
So is a woman as evil as Shanda Vander Ark even capable of remorse?
I don't believe there was an intent to kill here, because you would have lost the very thing that you wanted to torture. Without him, you have no one to torture. It's a sentence of the court. First as to count 2, child abuse in the first degree. Court sentences you 50 years to 100 years in prison.
Hi, welcome back to today's episode of True Crime Producer. I'm your host, Chantal. So today we are looking at a story that has kind of taken social media by storm. I first heard of this story based off of TikToks that I had seen. And that's the story of Shanda Vander Ark. You may have seen clips of her and of her trial because it really is being sensationalized all over social media right now. So let's take a deep dive. Let's learn a little bit more about this case. So the real victim behind Shanda Vander Ark is her son, Timothy Ferguson. So Timothy was a 15-year-old boy who was being homeschooled by his mother. And he had what I heard described as high-functioning autism. However, under his mother's care, he was tortured, abused, neglected, until his death in 2022, which was a direct correlation to all of the abuse that he suffered at the hands of his mother. And unfortunately, not only his mother, but also his brother, Paul Ferguson, who was 20 years old at the time of the murder. So many clips of the trial have gone viral, in one part because the crimes committed against Timothy were so brutal. So let's take a look at some of those.
You look like that when you put him in the bathtub?
I'm sorry.
Gotta make me a moment. Yes. Miss Vander Ark, do we have a trash can? Yeah, I placed a trash can. You did? Yeah. All right. Would you like the beard removed? All right, please rise. Recess.
How long was he in the tub?
I don't think it was long after I got home, but I don't know.
And again, you didn't tell the police officers this when they talked to you about what had happened the night before, did you?
I don't remember. Apparently I didn't.
Well, so you don't remember what you told the police officers?
I remember part of it, but if you say I didn't tell them, then I trust your word there.
If you told the police officers that you noticed he was skinny, so you made him some bread and put some butter on it and watched him eat 3/4 of it and then sent him to bed, does that refresh your recollection about what you told the officers?
I mean, I hear what you're saying. I don't remember saying it, but
So you don't remember saying those things to the police officer?
no, sir.
And those things clearly didn't happen, did they?
No, sir.
How did he get into his room that night?
I don't remember, sir.
Last page of the text messages. You can go ahead and read that very top text message, please.
Please set your alarm for 6 a.m. I ended up dragging him back to his small room because I wasn't going to risk him having access to the tub or other things overnight. He's still trying to be stupid, but I will tell you more tomorrow while I take you to work, describing how many different ways I proved that he's still faking. He's still doing it, though. It's beyond ridiculous.
I ended up dragging him back to his small room because I wasn't going to risk him having access to the tub or other things overnight. The plan was for him to sleep in the bathroom, wasn't it?
I don't remember, sir. I mean, I know that in the text message, but if that's what the text message says.
Okay. And you had to drag him back to the small room. Again, the small room being the closet, right?
Yes, sir.
Supposedly that he wanted to sleep in.
Yes, sir.
But you had to drag him there. Why was that?
Well, dragging, I mean, that could be anywhere from grabbing hold of an arm and because someone's not being cooperative. That can be a range of things, sir. So I don't know what I was referring to there.
You've seen the video, haven't you?
No, sir. I haven't seen any videos.
Do you need your memory refreshed about him getting back in the small room that night?
No, sir. I mean, like I said, I'll take I don't remember actually doing it.
Did you physically pull him into the room that night?
Yes, sir. I mean,
And did you push him down onto the ground so that he was laying and facing the camera?
if that's what it shows, then yes, sir.
And did you position his face towards the camera?
If that's what it shows,
And did you tell him that he owes you the biggest apology on the face of the earth and then maybe he can get out to go to the bathroom?
If that's what it shows, sir, I don't remember.
And did you return a little while later because he had rolled over away from the camera so that you couldn't see him on camera?
If that's what it shows, I don't remember any of this.
And did you tell him you don't need to open your mouth every time you breathe, dummy, and then hold his mouth shut?
I don't know what I said, sir. I mean, I'll take your word for that's what the video
Oh, you don't have to
shows.
take my word for it. Let's play the video for you.
Sir, that's not necessary. If that's what you're saying it shows, I believe you. I'm
So
not.
you're acknowledging that the night before Timothy died, hours before he died, you dragged him, looking like that, back into his small room, positioned him in front of a camera, told him he owed you an apology, then came back later because he rolled over away from the camera and held his mouth closed and said, see, you don't have to open your mouth when you breathe, dummy? You're acknowledging you did those things.
If that's what the camera shows, yes, sir.
You didn't put him in a warm bath that night, did you?
Yes, sir, I did.
But you had to drag him away from it?
If that's what it says, I don't. I know that I know he had a hoodie on.
You said the locks on the refrigerator were there because he got into the refrigerator, and if I heard your testimony correctly, he ate a pound of frozen hamburger?
Yes, sir. That was back.
And a bag of chicken nuggets?
A frozen bag of chicken nuggets, yes, sir.
And frozen hamburger?
Yes, sir. The hamburger was not frozen, it was refrigerated.
But frozen chicken nuggets?
Frozen chicken nuggets and raw bacon.
And raw bacon?
Yes, sir.
Frozen raw bacon?
No, it was in the refrigerator.
The frozen stuff was the chicken
Nuggets, that was the only frozen, yes, sir.
Did you think he had an affinity for frozen food?
I didn't know the only thing he ate frozen was the chicken nuggets.
Is that why you sent a text message to Paul while he was in the ice bath at 3:43 that afternoon and said, oh, okay, crazy thought. Tell him if he actually sits up by himself and stays sitting up, he will get some pizza rolls. Don't tell him it's only 2, and I'm okay if they are frozen rather than cooked. Why'd you send that text message?
I don't know.
Don't remember that one either?
No, sir.
So you're not worried about him eating frozen pizza rolls if he sits up?
If that's what it says.
You've heard it read several times.
Yes,
You're not
sir.
doubting that's what it says, right?
Yes, sir.
Just another one of those memories that you just gone from your head, right?
Yes, sir.
What did he have to endure? First of all, his whole living space, his bedroom, was restricted to the use of a downstairs closet. And in this closet, he had to sleep on or under a tarp, which was clearly meant for the outside. One of the more popular punishments, it seemed, that Shonda wanted to use on her son was feeding him bread soaked in hot sauce. Timothy was incredibly starved at the time of his death. In fact, his autopsy report read that his death was due to dehydration and starvation. So what she would feed him was, bread absolutely covered in hot sauce. And not just any kind of hot sauce either. He was fed the Carolina Reaper, the Trinidad Scorpion, which are two of the hottest peppers in the world. So imagine already being starving. Your stomach acid is corroding you. Your stomach's flipping in on itself. And what you're being given by your mother, who supposedly loves you and is taking care of you, is hot sauce on bread, or bread soaked in hot sauce. I mean, it's horrendous. And I'm somebody that doesn't like spicy food, so I truly can't even imagine this.
What dictates whether or not there's hot sauce on the bread that he's eating? What decides that?
I don't know. Whenever my mother told me to put hot sauce on it, I did. It was normally a thin layer to make sure that it wouldn't be too much, because from what I know, the Ghost or the California Reaper is 2,000 Scoville or 2 million Scoville.
What does that mean?
It's the hot sauce or the heat index, basically.
Okay. And that's pretty high?
Very.
So how long have you guys been using the hot sauce for?
Almost a month, maybe.
Okay. And was that only on bread, or was that on other stuff too?
I think one time we put it in some rice.
Okay.
But after that, I don't think we did that again.
Headed home now.
KK.
How is everything? Did you make him eat his bread with hot sauce?
I was just about to get up to get it. How many?
4 with hot sauce that he has to eat, and he has allowed another 4 without hot sauce. But he has to do the hot sauce when first, and then set a timer for 30 minutes before he can eat the others.
What was it used for, right? Because you're giving him bread as his meal. What's the purpose of the hot sauce?
I know it was punishment, but honestly, I don't think it was that useful because, like I said, he had no feeling in his tongue. He totally bit a hole in it at one point and didn't even feel it.
Was he eating this bread with hot sauce, or was he?
Yeah, he was.
Is that really the only things he had to eat those days, or would he get other things to eat?
From the bread and rice, other than that, not that I know of.
He was also forced to have ice baths constantly, excessive exercise, constant monitoring with surveillance cameras, and then prolonged standing for hours, sometimes overnight too. And one of the ways that the mother and son would make sure that he was sticking to these rules overnight when he had to stand up or even just stay completely still would be to put these vibration sensors all over him so they could tell if he was moving at all, because if he was moving, that he wasn't adhering to the rules of his punishment, and he would therefore be punished in a different way, usually a more aggressive way.
He keeps pulling his arms down, and that doesn't set off the camera alarm, so please watch him for that. Well, why did he have his arms up?
He was standing against the wall with his arms on his head.
So he'd have to do that for long periods of time, right?
Stand there, but he didn't have to have his arms up the whole time, but I'd set a time limit on how long he had to have his arms up.
And you're watching or watching an alarm to make sure his arm doesn't go down, right?
From the sound of it.
So another reason that this trial has gone so viral is because of Shonda's reaction to many of the questions that she's being asked by the prosecutor and the photos that she's being shown. So one of the first things that stands out when you're watching Shonda in court is her apparent inability to recall any of the text messages or events that the prosecutor is asking her about, especially when it paints her in a bad light, which is most of the time.
March 4th is around the time that you acknowledged that he was in zip cuffs. We talked about that a little bit earlier, but I don't think we clarified your final text message where you said, you know what? We will start cutting off the ends once they are tight, so he can't do that. Is that one of the can't remember texts too?
Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm. March 19th. Okay, that only makes partial sense. What did he grab? LOL. Paul's response, I don't know, chips or something small he had in his pocket. Okay, tell him he just restarted his not eating again. That was you. March 19th. Tell him he's just restarted his not eating again. So he took chips. So the punishment for that is now he's not allowed to eat anything again, right?
If that's, I don't remember, sir.
Don't remember that one. Okay. Physically driven until you fall over.
I have no idea, sir.
Remember that?
I don't remember it, no, sir.
So, but if the text message said he yanked the locks off the pantry, then there were locks on the pantry as of April 18th, right?
Apparently.
So what caused this almost freaking caught him and when all the food in the fridge and the freezer of the pantry, those locked up, April 28th?
I have no idea, sir.
It's likely related to the text before that, isn't it?
I don't know.
Locking up their food, locking up their access to food, punishing them when they try to take food? Did that ever occur to you with your brilliant legal mind, as it was, that wasn't a good idea?
I don't know. I don't know what I was thinking.
So his punishment for having an accident was that he had to do chores without pants and underwear on, right?
If that's what it says, I don't remember this.
That's pretty humiliating, isn't it?
I mean, he was by himself. It wasn't, I don't remember this at all, sir.
Yeah, he looked a little skinny last night, and I thought I should take him to the ER and then make some toast with butter on it and watched him eat it, and he walked away. None of that happened, did it?
No, I don't even remember that.
But you had the presence of mind to lie to the officer at the time when he was investigating.
Like I said, I was traumatized. I don't know. I don't remember this, sir.
It's really frustrating to see somebody clearly trying to protect themselves by lying and claiming that they don't remember anything. Anything that paints them badly, that is. If you sat through the trial and you watched the whole thing and you saw just how horrendous of a mother she was, it's a little frustrating to know that she didn't have to sit there and hear what the verdict was and just what the jury thought of her. Another really sad and complicated, I would say, part of this case is the involvement of Paul Ferguson, who is Timothy's brother. I believe Paul is 21 years now, but was 20 years old at the time of the murder. When you watch Paul's testimony, it's fairly clear that he also has some sort of special needs of his own. I searched, but I couldn't find anything that validated this statement. However, I did see an interview with the prosecutor who echoed the same sentiment. He said it's fairly clear that Paul has some mental handicaps of his own.
He was, for all intents and purposes, he was the enforcer of the punishments that the defendant in this case wanted to hand down. And all of those punishments combined are what were the basis of the first-degree child abuse charge, and ultimately he was a participant in the malnourishment, which is the cause of death and the basis for the murder charge. So I do hold him responsible for that. But I can't lose sight of the fact that I'm also dealing with a man who certainly does appear to have some special needs of his own. I've had an opportunity to meet with Paul several times in anticipation of him testifying, and I very genuinely got the impression that he feels genuine remorse for this, as he should. I'm not suggesting he shouldn't. He absolutely should.
All right, Mr. Ferguson, this is kind of a compound question, so I'm going to ask it.
Okay.
Mr. Ferguson, do you have any special needs?
I am diagnosed as ADHD, reactive attachment disorder, and sensory processing disorder, as well as I was taking medication for anxiety and depression.
Okay. Similar vein, it might be the same exact answer. Do you have any learning disabilities?
I'm not sure if any of those count as learning disabilities, but I
don't want to cut you off. Go ahead.
I suppose reactive attachment disorder can make certain things hard.
Okay. And let me follow up with that. This is not the jury question, but has anyone told you? Well,
Strike that. Everyone. Do you have autism? This is the other question. Do you have autism to your knowledge?
Not to my knowledge, not that I've been diagnosed with.
And do you have any other emotional issues that you're aware of?
Anger issues. I never have been good at controlling my anger. Never was truly taught well.
Paul absolutely should be held accountable for his actions, as he was the enforcer of many of these punishments. And when you're reading the text messages as well, it's very clear that he even initiated some of them on his own, that he also was feeling tremendous frustration towards Timothy. And the thing that really stood out to me when I was hearing the text messages being read is because I kept trying to figure out what is Timothy, what was he doing that was so wrong? Why was he being punished?
I was bound to determine he would stop being deceitful and sneaky.
And it seemed fairly obvious that he was being punished, especially towards the end, because Paul and Shonda thought that he was faking it, that he was faking dying. In Paul's interrogation video, he claimed that Timothy faked seizures before, and he faked shaking and not really being able to walk. And so I guess Paul and Shonda had it in their head where they were just going to kind of torture it out of him.
So he was very much neglected. And the fact that, she had asked you to put hot sauce on his private parts. Do you remember that?
She asked, but I never did. I never did
that?
No.
Okay. And she had asked you to put hot sauce directly into his mouth. Did you do that?
Yes.
Is that on the 5th, the day kind of leading up to all this stuff?
Yeah.
How much hot sauce did you put in there?
That.
And whose idea was that to put that hot sauce in there?
Hers.
And what was the purpose of that?
Again, she thought the whole unresponsive was an act.
She thought it was an act, which clearly, very clearly it wasn't, right?
Yeah.
Shonda repeatedly said, "We are not going to let him win. We are not going to let him win."
This is getting beyond pathetic, but he will not win this. Not going to happen. He's still trying to be stupid, but I will tell you more tomorrow while I take you to work, describing how many different ways I prove that he's still faking. The fake shaking is about to drive me insane, though. Has Timothy stopped the fake stumbling yet? Timothy was doing his fake stumbling and falling last night, of course. I really don't understand it, considering we know it's all fake.
You kept saying, young man, that you were under the impression that what Timothy was going through was an act. Do you remember that?
Because I was convinced by my mother.
Okay. You thought it was an act, correct?
Yes.
You thought he was faking it, correct?
Yes.
The seizures, you thought that was an act?
Yes.
The shaking, you thought that was an act?
Yes, I wasn't there when some of that occurred.
The trembling, that was an act?
Toward the end of these text messages, you and Paul are talking about not wanting him to win. He's not going to win. I didn't allow pictures to be shown in open court of Timothy as he was when he died, because I didn't want people to remember him like that. Of all the things you took away from him, one thing I didn't want you to take away from him was at least some shred of dignity.
So, yeah, but it became, I think, pretty clear in the testimony, in Paul's testimony, that he was absolutely remorseful of the actions that he took upon his brother. It was also very clear that he was deserving of the charge that he got, which was child abuse. Here are some of the other shocking things that he admitted to. He said that his brother would often urinate on the floor, so he had to wear adult diapers. In one of the text exchange between Paul and his mother, he was talking about how Timothy had urinated and defecated on the floor again, and how it smells so bad, and how he was so angry with him because Timothy left his dirty clothes in the bathroom and then Paul stepped on it. And instead of really starting to feel fear or, deeply saddened that this was the current state of his brother, he was instead really angry and frustrated with him. And the punishment for that one was a cold shower, where he was forced to stand there as Paul watched as he cleaned himself again in a cold shower. At one point, he did send a photo to his mother expressing concern over how thin Timothy had gotten. But he did express concern over how thin his brother got. So he definitely knew, at least part of him knew, just how thin Timothy was. So despite knowing just how thin Timothy was and having at least some inclination that Timothy is very unwell and much too thin and shocking, actually might not be faking, he still continued to give him hot sauce up until the day he died. And even before that, the day before his death, he left him in a bathtub for over 9 hours. So he absolutely was an instrumental part in the torture of his brother. There was one clip that I saw where he was talking about how there was a moment when he fed his brother a full meal because he knew he was so hungry. He knew or he had an idea that his brother was starving, but he did that once. If there was a way that he could have gotten away with it, where he, could say that the cameras weren't working or make up some excuse, you would think that he would have been able to feed his brother a full meal more than just one time. If he got away with it once, why didn't he even try to do it again? And, keep in mind that Shonda had security cameras all over the house, so she was constantly watching Timothy. She also said that, she used the cameras to watch her other son, who only went by the name of G in the courthouse or during the trial. But really, it seemed like she was using these videos to monitor Timothy's every move. There's texts between her and Paul where she's saying, has he put his hands down, his head looks moved to the side a little bit more than before. So she was watching his every move, and truly just to make sure that he was suffering as much as she wanted him to be suffering. The thing that really stood out to me as well in the text between Paul and his mother is it seems like this group torture activity was almost in some way like a bonding experience between the two of them. Paul would text his mom and say, I'm, so mad at Timothy today already. He did X, Y, and Z. And his mom would respond and say, oh no, what did he do today? So sorry you have to deal with this. One example of a text message I'll read you now made me absolutely sick to my stomach when I heard it. Paul said, he, being Timothy, is already pushing every one of my buttons. He's doing the whole shaking and I need support crap, and I'm ready to slam him into the ground. And he's wet the bed and is covered in urine. So the whole shaking and I need support crap, literally his 15-year-old brother begging him for help, clearly showing that he's on the brink of death, that he's shaking, he can't stand, he can't function like a normal adult because he's so starved. And Paul's response to that is to text his mother about how this is annoying him. I mean, it's beyond despicable and sickening, and the fact that Timothy was enduring this at the hands of his own brother and mom. I have 2 younger sisters, and I cannot even imagine seeing them in a state that Timothy was in and not immediately doing absolutely everything that I could to make them better. If a sister of mine came to me shaky and saying, I need support because, mom is killing me, there's not a question in my mind what I would do. And so Paul's reaction by, taking that situation and turning it into something that he could complain to his mom about really just sealed the deal for me, in the sense that he absolutely, does deserve to go to jail for what he did. But you don't treat any human like that, never mind your brother. So, made me sick. Another article I read was Shonda talking about, in a clip, Shonda was talking about how she feels like a quote-unquote complete failure, which just shows to me how out of touch with reality this woman is. Usually when mothers or parents say that they feel like a failure, maybe their child has gotten a bad grade or isn't as well behaved as they would like, or maybe the parents did something wrong. Maybe they, weren't watching them as closely as they should have, and the child got into some kind of accident, something like that. This is not her being a failure in that sense. She is evil. She tortured her son. There's no two ways about it. She tortured her son to death. That's not being a failure. That's not being, kind of a bad mom. This is being an evil human being. And that's the reality of it. Another interesting thing that happened, maybe interesting is a bad word, another terrifying, traumatic, horrible thing that happened is when Timothy finally did die. And Shonda coached Paul on just what he had to say when the police came. So she told Paul to say that Timothy was on a hunger strike and they didn't realize how thin he had gotten because he was always wearing baggy clothes. Again, and all things that were clearly disproven in their text message exchanges. As soon as the police had left, the mom, Shonda, took all evidence that the police had left behind, any cameras that were left behind, or vibration detectors, memory chips that were used to monitor Timothy while he was in the basement. She took all of that evidence and she destroyed it, whether she, was throwing it out the window on the car drive to her folks' place, or throwing it in a trash can or whatever. She got rid of evidence, just further proving that she knew exactly what she was doing. The pair of them knew exactly what they were doing. Shonda said that she panicked and that's why she told police things that were not true. I think it's because she knew that she had tortured and killed her son and that he starved to death on her watch. And that it was not a shock to her at all. So really this case left me pretty speechless and sick to my stomach on several occasions. This woman is going to spend the rest of her life in prison, and I could think a few people more deserving. The treatment of her own son is just appalling and heartbreaking. And, it's clear as day from her text that she is 100% guilty. There's no question of, did she do it? Did she not? No, she knew what she was doing and she did it. And she killed her son. And nothing's going to bring Timothy back, but, one can hope that he's just in a better place now, free from his truly, truly evil mother. And I got the impression that Paul is actually capable of feeling guilt and remorse, and I'm sure is going to, beat himself up about this for the rest of his life, which will most likely also be spent in jail. So yeah, really heartbreaking one today. There seems to be a lot of these in the news lately, which is just devastating. Anyway, that's it for our show today. Thank you so much for joining us. Hope to see you next time. Bye.